thumbs up when you're ready, Ray. All right, well, we're going to stitch this second part of the service into the first one somehow. Welcome back. We've been talking about welcoming the unwelcome and embracing failure, and technology has given us an opportunity to do that in real time and in real life. So here it is. We got feedback from people that were watching live about roughly where everything cut out altogether, although the sound apparently has been pretty shaky throughout the service. So why don't I just wrap up my reflection, and then I'll send it over to Jesse for a really powerful song called Temples of Sand. Anyway, we're talking about how do we become fruitful? Like, how does that actually happen? We're talking about, it's important to bear fruit in our lives, to show that we have qualities like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, instead of enmity, strife, jealousy, anger, quarrels, dissensions, factions, envy, drunkenness, carousing, and things like these, which is Paul's catch-all category. But how do we do that? Like, how does that happen? Well, Paul, in this letter to the church in Galatia, in the very next verse, describes it. He says, those who belong to Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. Now, we read that in the 21st century, we go like, what? That is heavy. And especially if you're in the spiritual but not religious tradition, or not even in a tradition at all, you read language like that and you go, yeah, I'm not into that kind of intense religiosity. All I would say in defense of Paul is this is the language, this is the imagery of the early church. Remember, they get started by following someone who is crucified on a cross. So this is their real story. This is their lived reality. So it doesn't surprise me that a crucifixion on a cross becomes an image that's used to describe spiritual formation or spiritual growth and transformation. It makes sense to me. Probably not something we would use today, but something that makes sense in terms of to whom Paul is writing and Paul as a writer himself. So we have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. And some people really do relate to that. I was mentioning that a number of years ago, about 20 years ago, I was working in a counseling situation with someone who was dealing with addiction, and she thought this imagery was really helpful. I nailed my addiction to the cross, and she says, but I relapsed. The problem was I didn't use long enough nails. I got to use longer nails next time. So if you can run with this imagery, go with it. But I think in the Western world, we've kind of started to use different imagery. And we borrowed a lot of that from the Eastern world, actually, and we've kind of appropriated it and kind of changed it a bit. But I think it works, and it honors some of the Eastern traditions. So there's a chapter, for example, in Pema Chodron's book, Welcoming the Unwelcome, that's brilliantly titled The Fine Art of Failure. And she says learning how to fail is invaluable. It's not a life lesson we happily embrace, but it's invaluable. And the reason we don't embrace it is that our ego gets in the way. And I think ego, certainly since Freud and throughout the 20th century and continuing into the 21st century, ego is a concept that works in Western traditions and Eastern traditions, and certainly works in third decade of the 21st century. Ego has a problem with not being perfect. Ego thinks we're all together, we're okay, we've got it handled, we can deal with it. And ego tells us that all the time, which keeps us from dealing with it, which keeps us from facing our failure, which keeps us from welcoming the unwelcome. Ego doesn't like the open-endedness of failure. It doesn't like the vulnerability and the ambiguity that failure creates for us. When we fail, all of a sudden things aren't neatly sewed up. Things aren't certain anymore. We don't know where things are going. And we don't know how to pin things down. We don't know what we have and what we don't have. So ego keeps us from being fully present in the moment of our failure because it doesn't like it. It doesn't like how it feels. And so ego will tell us a few different things. It'll tell us we don't have a problem, or somebody else is the problem, or I think the worst one is it tells us we are nothing but a problem, and we might as well just give up. All of those are not true. All of those are untruths, and all of those keep us just from dealing with our crap. So let's get ego out of the way. Crucify the flesh with its passions and desires, or get ego out of the way. Let it go. Because if we're buying into ego, if we're buying into we don't have a problem, somebody else is the problem, or we're nothing but a problem, all three of those things distract us from dealing with what we need to deal with in our lives. And the problem with that is when we thinking about it, it's haunting us, it's threatening us because we know it's there and we're not dealing with it, so let's just deal with it. Running away from our failure is just running headlong into more unhappiness. So the alternative to running away from failure is letting it come, feeling it, feeling all the feels, or doing what Pima Chodron calls holding the rawness of vulnerability in our heart. And that's a mouthful to say, and it's a handful to do. Holding the rawness of the vulnerability in our heart is pretty scary. You can jump in the deep end and just go for it. You might want to start small, start in the shallow end, whatever works for you. But to really embrace this idea of holding the rawness of vulnerability in our heart will take some time. So if it doesn't feel good at first, then you go, okay, I can only do this for 10 seconds. That's okay. Try 20 seconds next time. Try a couple minutes the next time. Try 20 minutes after that. But it will take time because we are not programmed for that. We don't like vulnerability. We hate it. But Chodron assures us that if we remain present in the moment with our failure, we'll actually discover that we are not a failure. We might have failures in our lives, but we are not a failure. We are going to be okay. She says this: we think that facing our demons is reliving some traumatic event or discovering for sure that we're worthless. But in fact, it is just abiding with the uneasy, disquieting sensation of nowhere to run, and finding that, guess what? We don't die, we don't collapse. In fact, we feel profound relief and freedom. That seems like a pretty good place to be, relief and freedom. When we face the worst in us, we enter a space where the best part in us can come out. Our bravery, our kindness, our ability to care about and reach out to others, all that happens when we let go of ego, let the failure wash over us, face it for what it is, welcome the unwelcome, and let it go past. We create space in our lives for the good stuff, compassion and kindness, or the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. But we have to face our failure first. So let us do that. Let us embrace our failures. Not to wallow in them, but to feel the feels, to recognize that we didn't get it right all the time, and that we have to grow. We have some learning to do, that we have to bear fruit worthy of repentance. We have some changes to make that make a difference. And I wish us all the best as we do that, and wish us a fruitful future. Amen.
So this song is an invitation to exactly what Greg's talking about. To actually be effective, be an agent of change. I think one of the biggest struggles we have in spaces like this, in communities like this, is we're really good with language. We have the right language, we say the right things, but inclusive, justice-oriented language doesn't mean anything if it's not followed by inclusive, justice-oriented action. And that's kind of where this song sits. So I just ask you to receive this in any way you're comfortable. Living in a land of skyscrapers, thinking we're so tall. built our towers of arrogance, thinking they won't fall. We thought our ships unsinkable, loving our own genius. Now we're floating in the lifeboats, God, praying that you're hearing us. Spirit, we are ready to let go of all this finery. Spirit, make us ready to drink deep from freedom's winery. Could we build with our hands, raise the dead as love demands, swing no swords as peace commands, sing out loud, strike up the band. Could we build with our hands, raise the dead as love demands, swing no swords. Down the roads of deep excess, thinking we've got it all, worshipping our own success, thinking big, never small. We thought ourselves full in every way, always wanting more. Now we're empty, grasping for life. Love is what we're starving for. Spirit, we are ready to let go of all this finery. Spirit, make us ready to drink deep from freedom's winery. Could we build with our hands, raise the dead as love demands, swing those swords as peace commands, sing out loud, strike up the band. Could we build with our hands, raise the dead as love demands, swing those swords as peace commands, sing out loud, strike up the band. Spirit, make us ready. Spirit, make us ready. Spirit, we are ready.
We're going to take some time at the end of our service to gather around the table. The table is where the candles are. Candles are where the light is. This time of candle lighting is a reminder that we have been given some light here today, and that light shines in the darkness of our own souls and spirits, and the darkness does not overcome the light. The light prevails, and that applies not only to us, but the world to which we go to. We bring some light that we have received into the world. We are not the light. We are not the light for everybody, the one light that somehow solves everybody's problems, but we have some light to offer. And so as we reflect on the light that we've received here today, let us also reflect on how we can be light in the world to which we are called to be servants and agents of change. And as we're reflecting on the light here and at home, Garrett is going to play a few tunes for us on the flute. A few words of thanks and a blessing before we say goodbye. Thanks to Jesse Peters and Garrett Fordu for doing music today. Thanks to Marco Rojas for outrunning the sound, and to Raymond Yang for running video. Some glitches in the system today, and they got everything rebooted and ready to go again. Appreciate that. Thanks to Bob Benner for all the sanctuary work that he did and getting the church ready for our service today. And thanks to you for tuning in live or later in the week. Join us for the post-reflection group after the service if you are listening live. It'll be a little shorter today because my dog is at home sick instead of at daycare. And I checked on him. He's sleeping right now, which is good, but I'll have to keep watching him and get home soon. A blessing as we go from here. Let us go from here in the one who, by the power at work within us, is able to accomplish abundantly far more than all we can ask or even imagine. Let us go from here in peace. We're going to close off the service today with Jesse Peters singing, "How Can We Be Love?"
How can we get far with eyes shut and a closed heart? How can we be loved with minds made up and folded arms? We got to learn how to see, to let go and get free. World can't shut out the world. We need that, believe that. Oh, I hope we know it's time, oh, it's time to reach out, speak out. Oh, I hope we know that a change's gonna come, that train's gonna run. Are we the people who are ready? How can we get far with eyes shut and a closed heart? How can we be loved with minds made up and folded arms? We got to learn how to see it, to let go and get free. Our hearts, our battered hearts, we need that healing. Oh, I hope you know, you, that beautiful you, we need that, believe that, yeah. Oh, we got to know, yes we do, that a change's gonna come, that train's gonna run. Oh God, I hope we're ready. How can we get far with eyes shut and a closed heart? How can we be loved with minds made up and folded arms? We got to learn how to see, to let go and get free. Change gonna come, yeah. That train's gonna run. Oh God, I hope we're ready. How can we get far with eyes shut and a closed heart? How can we be loved with minds made up and folded arms? We got to learn how to see, yes we do, to let go. How can we get far with eyes shut and a closed heart? How can we be loved with minds made up and folded arms? Oh, we got to learn how to see, yes we do. let go